This conversation is sponsored by CAPS, Health and Wellness.
This is what I know. We're all connected to one another, the earth and all her inhabitants. We thrive on these connections, real ones that touch our soul, fill our hearts and invigorate our mind. I have been so fortunate to experience this all my life, meeting extraordinary ordinary folks who inspire and provoke. My name is Khadija Muhaisen. Welcome to Adventures of the Soul Conversations. My hope is that they will fill your cup as they have filled mine. I'm the first to complain that technology is not always helpful in supporting us to build human connections. The reality is we spend more time interacting with one another behind screens, which really brings me to the irony of my next conversation. This same technology, I lament, has allowed me to meet and get to know my guest, Gloria Latham. It was bright and early for her at 6 a.m. in Vancouver, BC, when we sat down behind said screens to talk about yoga, empowerment, the guru, the turban, the veil, and how we are really essentially all the same. Gloria has been studying and teaching kundalini yoga for 20 years. She has spent decades bringing yoga to thousands of people through her Semper Viva yoga studios in Vancouver, BC, online, on retreats, teacher trainings, and conferences around the world. She is a Lululemon Global Ambassador, a frequent presenter at yoga conferences and festivals, as well as Gaia TV. From my sofa in Amman one sunny afternoon, I sat down to chat with one of the most influential forces of yoga teacher training worldwide. Technology is really awesome, sometimes. Okay, they have to roll, but hold that thought because we're coming back to that. That's actually how we're starting. Go ahead.
Oh no! Yes.
Did you move to? Did you go as an immigrant to Vancouver, or were you born there?
I was born in Vancouver, but I'm first generation, so
So you're like my daughters.
yeah. Except I had very similar to people at that time. My parents had no education. My mom didn't even complete grade 1, so I was the child who would have to. As soon as I learned to spell, I'd have to write checks for my parents and do all their help with a lot of things that you normally wouldn't do at 6, 7, 8 years of age. And
were you an only child?
No, I had an older brother.
And what brought your parents to Vancouver?
Oh, they both went through the war, so hunger brought. Oh my goodness, sorry. Hunger brought them to Vancouver. I'm laughing because my teacher's Gurumuk is calling me right now.
Oh, how awesome! My God, this conversation is blessed. Wow. Gloria, I've been, first of all, I'm so thankful to be able to speak to you while you're in your kitchen, I'm assuming, or somewhere in Vancouver, and I'm here in Amman with a 10-hour difference. What a blessing technology is sometimes. And thank you so much for accepting, agreeing to wake up at wee hours of the morning to speak to me. I realized today that we have something in common. So my name is Khadija, which is a very big Muslim name that does not necessarily conform to what I look like. And today, watching a video of yours online, you said that one of the things that you think has helped you reach people is the fact that you don't necessarily look like a kundalini yoga teacher, quote unquote. So tell me more about how you have come to terms with this and how comfortable you are with this.
Yeah, I'm completely comfortable with it. I don't know that everyone is comfortable with it. So background for people that don't know what we're talking about exactly. So typically in Kundalini yoga, you wear a head covering. You're always required to wear white. And there's energetic reasons for that.
Tell me about it. So I understand the turban with the energy is to contain the energy in the crown. But what about the white? I don't know about the white.
Well, they say wearing white expands your aura by 9 feet, and Yogi Bhajan said by dressing differently, at the time that he was teaching, said people will also be drawn to you. Students will be drawn to you. There'll be a curiosity, and so that sort of became a way to open up the conversation for what you're doing, right? Because everybody else in our city is not walking around in white flowing robes and the turban. Now, when I started doing yoga, I came to yoga like I believe most people come to yoga, and it's because of personal pain. My life was not working. It was a very challenging time, and it was just the usual stuff of life had built up to the point that I was becoming so anxious, and things felt really, really difficult. Sort of, let's say I was headed towards burnout pretty fast.
And you were a pharmacist with your own, working for someone or with your own business?
Yeah, I worked as a pharmacist. It was the time that the AIDS had, the beginning of the whole AIDS thing. And so I was working very much with that population, and which was really an interesting time because, I was in the downtown core in Vancouver, and there were, parents flying in to see and be with their children who, not only did they find out at that time that their children had AIDS, but also that was the first time they found out that their child was also gay. So all of this emotion and.
But you're a pharmacist. Like, how were you in touch with the parents? Like,
so because the pharmacy I worked at was right across the street from the hospital that had the. Was doing all of the research around AIDS and had the largest population with the illness in our area. So that's how we were constantly in touch with them, coming back and forth for things.
So you were experiencing all this suffering outside of you?
There was a lot. Yeah, I was at the AIDS population, and I also worked in the methadone clinic. So I worked with people with addiction. So that was a big part of my work. So a lot of pain, a lot of pain. So there was that there, and then just the usual, young couple with financial stress, children on the way, all of those things, family illnesses, just, the pressure building, So I had a naturopath who kept recommending to me for a long, long time to take yoga. And I had the same mental picture of yoga that most people have, just very, gentle and soothing and relaxing. And the energy inside me was so worked up. I couldn't even imagine how I could be in this room, just sitting around, just peaceful, doing nothing while I had churning calm. It was, to me, what made sense was to go out and go for a run and to just run off that energy, or, to go into the gym. And
you were cultivating more and more energy without knowing how to contain it.
And so I was I was trying to burn off that energy, but that was also, was all more energy out, where, as with the yoga, you're regenerating yourself. You're not just, you do release that, but at the same time, because of the breath work, you're also regenerating and renewing yourself. So it has an entirely different quality to it. Anyway, so my naturopath for a long, long time was after me. You have to do this. And I was, yeah, whatever. Until one day I just felt so bad, so ill. I was at work, and I said, you know what, we had a metaphysical bookstore across the street. I said, I will go and get myself a yoga video, because I still couldn't even imagine that I could take an hour for myself to do a practice. So I'll just go grab a video and I'll go home and I'll try it. So I went across the street, got this 15-minute video, did the practice, and it was in my living room floor. I was alone in the house. And I remember getting up from that practice, and I still feel that first breath I took, when I got up, like it was the first deep breath of my life. So profound. And so immediately I knew it was something I had to explore. So I got up off the living room floor, and I went to find the only teacher in my community that I knew. We're talking a long time ago. There was not a lot of.
How long ago?
Over 20 years. Over 20 years. So, it wasn't the time that there was a yoga studio on every corner, and, all these videos, and it was very limited. Anyway, so I went to my teacher, and at that time I had no idea there were different styles, or I knew nothing. All I knew was this felt amazing, and I needed to understand it. Like, why was this so impactful? And I needed more of it. And so, and I didn't want to take classes. I wanted to really understand it. I wanted to dive deep. And so I remember
in you, the scientist in you.
Yeah. So I went to this teacher, and I literally had to beg her to allow me to do teacher training, because when I told her, I said, well, I want to train, because I knew that's how I'd have the deeper experience.
Straight away.
Before she laughed at me. She said, well, you haven't even taken any classes. And I said, yeah, but I need this. And I remember saying this, I know that I need this. So I came to yoga from a very different place. I had no, I watch now how students explore yoga. They get onto Google and, or explore teacher training, and there's all this thought process and, let me research the different styles, and let me, all of that, and what course and what teacher. And for me, it was just like a hook. It was just, this is where I'm going, just boom.
And this teacher was not a Kundalini teacher, or was
she was a Kundalini teacher. And so, so
yeah, go ahead.
So I ended up in Kundalini yoga, and yet if I had researched it, I may not. No, probably not, because there's so much around that. Is it a cult? Is it a religion? There's so much confusion. So there is American Sikhism, which is a religion, and then there is yoga, and they are separate. And so you don't need to be an American Sikh to practice yoga. Now, so the clothing and all of that, where does that come in? So
was the clothing an issue for you?
It wasn't for me. I mean, for me, it was, I always say to people, I've grown up in Vancouver, so we are a very open, accepting place. So it's not unusual. For years, I would see people walking down the streets in the white flowing robes and the turbans, and I wouldn't think anything of it, because, we're a multicultural place. There's so many different people, so many different backgrounds. It didn't register for me as anything odd. But then when you go into the yoga and people start recommending or strongly recommending that you dress a certain way, then it feels a little bit odd. So of course I did the exploration around, well, why the white clothing and why the turban? But here's what really was difficult for me. I found myself over time that there were so many conversations about people asking why not me, but like why wear the turban and why the white robe. It became like fixated on that, and we couldn't get into the yoga conversation. And so that's why I said it felt like a barrier. There's more. I have had probably, I don't even know how many conversations about what someone wears versus actually the yoga. And so I feel like it's irrelevant. And the other thing, when I did my very first training, I remember sitting down with my teacher and saying, this is so impactful for me, and I know how amazing it is, and I want to share it with people, but I know that people walking in aren't really clear. It felt like a mixed message. Am I getting involved in a cult, or am I doing yoga? Because if you're asking me to wear something, to dress a certain way, it feels a little odd. And so,
was this right at the beginning, Gloria, for you, or did it take time?
No, it was right at the beginning. Because it was so impactful for me, and because I wanted to share it. I wanted to break down the barriers, and I wanted the student to be able to see themselves in me, and for me to be able to see myself in the student. I wanted to be relatable to each other, so we could have an open experience instead of this block or this barrier of like, I'm something other than you, something maybe above you as a teacher. I love what Mark Whitwell says as a teacher. He says, as the student-teacher relationship, he says, a teacher should be no more than a friend and no less than a friend. And so it kind of breaks down that whole student, guru student thing, because I think that's just rife for disaster. The minute you start trying to elevate yourself or make yourself maybe even look different or than your student, you're creating a barrier there. We need to be talking to each other like this. We learn as much or more from the student as they learn from us. It's a conversation, and we can't have an open conversation when we have barriers. And of course, like I said, does it matter what people wear? Absolutely not. But if you are very specific about what I should wear, that makes me a bit uncomfortable.
Because this is also, I feel like there's so many things you just said that really touched me. One is I can't get even the idea of the veil and the identification with being Muslim with that, because in some ways when you explained the rationale behind the white and the clothing, the whole thing, it's to make them stand out so people know who they are. And I think that explains a lot about the rationale behind the veil to begin with, because they really needed to stand out in the city so that at the time, so that people knew who they were. So it was almost like an identity for them. So there's that, and that really, I mean, this is the first time I look at it that way. So thank you for that. And then there's the other idea of the barrier, because yes, it is a barrier. It is a barrier because you immediately, without even realizing it, you're just putting that person in a box, and it takes a while. I think barriers eventually come down after you establish that human connection, but it's the initial one that with
totally.
The
whereas
judgment.
People already have such a hard time getting to even begin yoga. It takes people a long time to be open to it, and then once they get there, then we're sending them mixed signals. And in Kundalini yoga, for instance, it might be the turban and the white flowing robes. But if I do, say, another style of yoga and I walk into a yoga studio, and if as a teacher I'm telling them that yoga is not a religion, but then I walk into a yoga studio and it's all painted with Hindu gods on the wall, I'm sending mixed signals. For me, yoga should strengthen your faith, whatever your faith is.
Have you heard that quote by an English pastor who said, Buddhism made me a better Christian? And I think the one thing, I never knew about this quote until recently, actually, but for me, when I took my first teacher training, and like you, I had no idea. I mean, I just jumped in. I had no expectations, so I just did the whole thing. And I think because there were no expectations, I think the effect was really, really profound. It made me a better Muslim. It made me more spiritual in my prayer. It made me connect more to my religion, because I started to put two and two together. Like even now, when you're speaking about the white and the turban, it's just, it just makes me think of my own culture and my own religion. So it's wow, it's really, really profound. The other thing that you brought up is you have to also, I kept thinking of Wild Wild Country when you were talking about the guru, and all gurus fall from grace. At least that's what history has shown us. Yeah. And have you watched Wild Wild Country?
I haven't. Everybody has told me to watch it.
Oh, I think you need. I mean, it's shocking. It's shocking, and it made me depressed for days because there's so many. Yeah, but it's about gurus fall from grace, and if you think of yourself as I love the word guru though. It's shed light,
anything that moves you from darkness to light.
So everybody is everyone's guru, really, when you think about it. But I think it's this label. But the other thing with yoga now, today, and I think that from my experience, that's what maybe alienates some people, is the commercialism now. Having, to wear a certain label and to look a certain way and to be able to have a certain body type. And, there's that too. It's not only
and I can certainly speak to that, because now we've been running 4 studios in Vancouver, and we're a very fitness lifestyle kind of community.
I love your studio. Let me say, I love it. I love yoga there, and I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. The fact that people do see it as a way to get sort of physically fit, at least it helps us to get them in the door. And so that is the beauty of the commercial side of it, is all of a sudden, because everybody feels they have to work out or they in some way, or they need to get fit. So if they have that as a driving force, it kind of helps us to get them in the studio. But then it's our work to say, great, you're here now, and for sure we're going to work your physical body, but some other things are going to happen. So then it's up to us. That commercialism helped that students start their journey. But then we can take them, once they're there, then it's up to us to build that relationship and take them to a new place they couldn't have even imagined when they went to, buy their new yoga mat and their new pair of pants and walk in.
But also, Gloria, it's up to you, but it's also up to them, because what happens is, and I'm a huge fan of the gym and working out and this whole athletic thing because it gets you there. I mean, it's just a different way, but eventually you're all going to get to the same place. We're all going to get to the same place. So, you can be, I don't know, I mean, I use it lightly, enlightened, but you can become enlightened running a marathon,
Totally. Yeah.
So I did ask, thank you though, that was really beautiful. I asked some of my friends, what questions they would like to ask you. This is going to be a little bit random, but before I go there, I couldn't help but think that you needed a lot of courage to say that I don't want to conform to what I'm supposed to be. Do you feel like you still tap into this internal courage, or are you just so comfortable that it's not even an issue for you?
I feel like if I'm doing it for the right reason, my purpose in doing it is I want to be able to share something that helped me at a very, very difficult time in my life. Now, if I was doing it for some other reason, for some personal motive, that would be different. Then it would be, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm doing it because I believe this will open something up that's very impactful to someone who can literally feel better like this if they have the tools. Within a couple of minutes of the breathing techniques, with a couple of minutes of the meditation, moving their body, they can feel better instantly. And so that is the only motivation. And so I have to believe it's, I'm gonna say it's okay. It's better than okay. I'm solid in this decision.
Yeah, I can see it, and I think what attracts people to you is this authenticity. I mean, it shows you're authentic. You're sharing from this space of authenticity, and I think that's what everyone relates to. I try to always think about themes, when I ask guests to have this chat, and for some reason with you, empowerment kept coming to me, and lately. I believe this is 100% in flow, because there's been a lot in the media recently about how change and growth starts from within, from the inside out, and how science now has come to this as well. It's nice that science and the spiritual world are meeting. So with you, I feel, I don't know, does that resonate at all?
Absolutely. And, in honoring what Yogi Bhajan said when he came and started teaching in North America, he said, I didn't come here to collect disciples. So his whole intent was to train teachers, meaning not necessarily that everybody's going to teach yoga, but once you teach yoga formally in a yoga studio, but once you have this wisdom, these tools, you are going to teach, you are going to share, you're going to feel compelled. If you know something that could be helpful to someone in your life, would you not share it? And so he was from the beginning encouraging people to step up, to take that sort of leadership role, to step into their power, and really at the core of Kundalini Yoga. So Kundalini Yoga, as with all yogas, the purpose is to raise your Kundalini energy, and that's tremendous power. And that isn't, a power over another person. That's your own personal power. That's I was referred to as like the greatness you're capable of. It's about stepping into your purpose. It's about living your passion. It's about your destiny. So that's pretty powerful stuff.